It's Wednesday, December 4th, 2019, and Digital Trends Live is about to start. Here's what we're going to cover. Two lovable goofballs quit their jobs at a startup with a quirky name, which they founded in their garage in Silicon Valley. Those guys, Google founders Larry Page and Sergey Brin. What's next for Google? After Qualcomm's big tech summit is underway, where a new top-of-the-line chip for smartphones was unveiled, and 5G is the talk of the town. We'll bring you the latest. We'll talk to Rich Ting, one of the stars from Amazon's hit show The Man in the High Castle, which just kicked off its fourth and final season. A little later, we'll bring you live footage from Cape Canaveral, where SpaceX and NASA are launching a Falcon 9 to the International Space Station. All this and more coming up live on Digital Trends. Hey, thanks for joining us. I'm Jeremy Kaplan, the editor-in-chief of Digital Trends, greeting you live on this sunny, cold, kind of crummy day in New York City. I'm joined by Corey Gaskin, our lovable mobile editor.
Hey, everybody.
Here in New York with us, rather than in Hawaii.
Rather than in Hawaii, where the typical DT Live crew is, and some of my mobile crew, so we were the lucky ones.
Well, we're pleased to have you here. Thank you for joining us.
Absolutely, my pleasure.
Let's jump right into it. We're going to hit some of the headlines for you. The big news, of course, is the big change at Google. I call them two lovable goofballs. That's the founders of Google, of course. After 21 years, they founded Google in 1998. They finally decide we're stepping down. Sounds like a big change for this company. Do you think it is a big change?
I don't think it's going to be a huge change. I think it could be. I think, well, we were talking about this earlier with how Microsoft kind of shifted away from Bill Gates initially. And when that first happened, they moved to Steve Ballmer. And they kind of wandered through the desert for a little bit and then found their Satya Nadella, who was able then to bring them to where they are right now and really bring Microsoft to be one of the companies that people look to as innovators and kind of one of the forces for good. It's been recent. Google actually has had maybe more recent press that they're doing potentially not great things, even though their motto is what? Do no evil, do no harm.
Exactly.
Right.
Yeah, the Microsoft thing is interesting because it feels like when Satya took over, he really shaped the company. He brought his own vision and said, here's what we're going to cover, here's what's happening. So with the change in leadership at Google, is the same thing going to happen? Because Google, if you ask me, Google's kind of all over the place, succeeding. I don't think that they're like sloppy all over the place, but they're in cars, they're in Android phones, they're in tablets, they're changing their smart home. Yeah, gaming now.
Yeah, they are definitely everywhere, and now that's all Sundar Pichai's purview. Being the CEO now of Alphabet, Larry Page, Sergey Brin will still be on the board,
right,
and presumably contribute their tidbits of what they want to do, but only so much as, Bill Gates is with Microsoft right now. He's going to be in charge, and I think that a lot of these things that they have, he started in 2004, right? Mm-hmm. So a lot of these things have started under him. He started with Google Chrome, which is, I'm not a huge Chrome fan, I'll be honest, but I know everybody else in the world loves it. And you can look to that for a lot of the streamlining and focus that Google has needed to do on some of its products. And you could even maybe look at, just recently there was some news about maybe picking up Fitbit. And you could look at that as somewhat of a narrowing focus on the smartwatch category, perhaps more to fitness trackers and more around that, which they already have with Google Fit. So it seems like they could benefit a little bit by focusing in on certain things. And that could be what Sundar Pichai really wants to do here.
Yeah.
It couldn't hurt.
What's interesting is you don't hear a lot from Larry or Sergey, right? They are not very public guys. It's not that we know an awful lot about what they've been up to. They're not making a bunch of policy statements. They're not the ones going in front of Congress saying, here's what we're doing, here's what we think about the many ways that technology has been touching our lives.
Right.
So to some extent, I feel like this might not actually be a big shift whatsoever.
That's exactly what I'm thinking when it comes down to it. He's been at the top of this, Sundar Pichai for, since 2011. He joined in 2004, but Page took over as Google CEO in 2011, and now he is going over as Alphabet's CEO. But Yeah, they kind of likened it to maybe their kid, you know, because it's 21 years, and they said that their child is leaving the nest, and this is the time to, you know, kind of give them love and advice, not so much the day-to-day nagging, as they put it. And
That was kind of cute.
yeah, you
I like
know,
the way they did that.
and it's interesting how the company has matured in a similar way in 21 years. It looks like it could stand on its own legs. I don't think. I mean, you could
doing okay.
Yeah,
Little small company.
they're all right. You know, I don't think he has to do a lot of rehab.
Let's move on. Next story I want to talk to you about something that I find personally pretty fascinating. I hope you're familiar with Cannonball Run, of course, that great movie from the 70s with Burt Reynolds, the man with the mustache. So Cannonball Run was, of course, based on a real story. Two guys, Brock Yates, genuine name, Brock Yates and Steve Smith, who did a run across the country. It took them about 36 hours, as fast as possible, so very, very illegal. And they based this movie on this. So two guys just broke that record. 36 hours was the first one that Brock did.
Correct.
Arn Toman, Doug Tabbutt, and Berkeley Chadwick did this in 27 and a half hours.
27 and a half, yeah. Honestly, I don't know what's more impressive, 36 in the 70s or 27 in 2019. They're both pretty impressive. Think about trying to do that. I've driven to Florida once, and we took many shifts, and it's over 24 hours. And that's, what, not even half of the length. So, what'd they say? Their average speed was about 103 miles per hour.
Yeah.
So,
Which means most of the time so 100 miles an hour is just terrifying, right? Very scary to be going that fast. And they're doing that for 27 hours, which means they're also going 110 miles per hour at some point,
120 probably, yeah. Because you got to think they have to be in some residential spots sometimes, so you're about 35, 40 miles an hour sometimes. Yeah, they're probably hitting 120 most of the time.
The thing that gets to me, so obviously they've planned out this map, right? You have to know where you're driving. So if you can plan that out ahead of time and put in the GPS, no problem. And if I were them, I would plot out gas stations too, because refueling is essential.
Do you think they use a GPS or just Google Maps?
I would think they'd have it in the GPS.
You think GPS?
Why not?
No live updates, that's why not. Need
true.
traffic updates.
Well, they need to have a whole bunch of technology in the car. So there were data recorders and GPS that they can say exactly that they did do this.
Right.
I was at this place at this time. I was at this place at this time.
Sure.
Otherwise, you can't get that Guinness record.
Yeah, right. Waze doesn't have that functionality, I don't think.
But how do you plan for all of the other, let's call them soft features? Like you need to eat. You need to go to the bathroom. How do you bake that into a plan like that?
27 and a half hours for what's usually a 5-day trip for people.
Yeah.
I'm very worried about that. I want to know what they ate. I want to know how they went to the bathroom. I want to know how long they had to hold it. I want to know all of that. But I also want to know how they stayed focused, because not only is that tough on a 5-day trip where you have to pull over and rest, but in a full 27 and a half hour span, how do you stay focused driving that fast?
Is it just 5-hour energy? That's
Just
a
a
steady
ton
diet
of
of Red Bull and 5-hour energy, just over and over again.
I'm really hoping it's not that, because I think, all right, I don't think there's a lot of great
That's damaging
examples.
for your health long term.
There's not a lot of great examples being set here.
Yeah.
103-mile average. They had, so some of the tech that they had to have to evade police, right?
Yep.
Not a lot of great precedents to be set here, but a great record nonetheless. A Guinness record.
Yeah. We anticipate a movie coming out shortly. Hopefully it'll
That's
last
true.
you know what they should do? They should do a real-time movie of this. 27 hours. Actually, that'd be terrible. Let's not recreate this illegal high-speed chase across the
It'd
country.
be a thriller for sure. I'm on the edge of my seats already.
All right. We're going to switch topics for you. Something else we want to talk about. The Facebook Clear History tool. There was a great story that I read on New York Magazine. So Facebook recently announced a tool to move photos off of the platform. If you have a bunch of photos stored on Facebook, you want to port them over to Google, you want to take them to wherever, they announced a tool to let you move those off, which is great. Sounds like a great idea. However, if you stop and look at Facebook's history of announcing tools and things like this, they have a lengthy history of saying, we're going to do something, and then actually not doing something. So flashback to spring of 2018, when they announced a tool to manage off-platform data, right? So Facebook tracks you across a variety of different spaces. When you're on Google, they're tracking you. When you're on shopping for something on Amazon, they're tracking you too. They call it shadow profiles. They create a profile of you off-platform. And they said, well, we're going to create a tool to let you manage that. In August, they announced the actual tool. Here it is 3 months later. I don't have the tool. Corey, do you have this tool?
I haven't seen it personally, no.
So while it's great that they make these concessions towards what we want to do with our data, what gives? Is Facebook intentionally slow rolling these things?
Yeah, well, I mean, their hand was forced for sure on this. All of these things are slow rolling into countries that forced them to do it. We have our own struggles with what we want our big tech companies to do here at home, which is crazy that, in certain areas they're getting more progress than we are here. But that speaks to a larger issue of structure. The thing about it here for Facebook is that, places like Lithuania, Ireland, anything that under GDPR has had forced most companies to give you the option to delete and manage your data.
Sure.
This has been implemented by most big companies. Amazon, even though there was some growing pains there, I recall Amazon had a story where they've recorded Amazon Alexa's recordings, right? Every time that you ask something, and somebody asked, who's never owned an Alexa device, to delete all of his Amazon data, and to have it, actually.
Sure.
So he got sent this zip file, and it was recordings of another person's Alexa interactions.
That's like the worst case scenario.
Yeah, so not only do we have a little bit of trouble, regulating it when we actually get it and making sure it goes out properly, but that's something that Facebook needs to, they're not even there yet, honestly, unfortunately. And it kind of goes to show, I think, that they're doing this just to comply with laws and are not doing it very well to begin with.
The thing about the GDPR rules, so meant to cover European Union, and for the record, by the way, if you leave Europe, you're still a European citizen. So these policies need to be implemented wherever one is.
Right.
I feel like Facebook has been implementing policies that sort of comply. So we have this privacy protection tool. You can access it in Ireland. You can get to it in Lithuania. Can the average person get to it? Absolutely not. So it feels a little disingenuous. They're announcing something, they're saying all the right things, and then not actually releasing those products. So it's almost
Has
like
Facebook said all the right things, though? Facebook's had a lot of trouble
they
saying
say
the
all
right things,
Absolutely.
too.
Every time Mark Zuckerberg comes out, he says all the right things. I'm sorry, I apologize for this. He's apologized.
I recall some
100
moments
times.
with one AOC grilling him, and many others who are just not, who are just not getting proper, straight answers, and he couldn't answer whether you could, well, this is more related to
Senator, I'll get back to you
and
on that.
things like that. Right. So they have a lot to control, but the thing about it is, if this is not something that just snuck up on them.
Yeah.
This is the goal and expressed intention of Facebook, is to have tons of data about you and to share it.
Make as much money off of it as possible.
And to make money off of it. That's the business model. So you can see why there might be some time, a little bit of a buffer for them to actually implement some of these things. But he's one of the top 5 richest people in the world. I think Facebook might have some cash to throw around or lose.
They certainly have the means to do all of these things, which is why at the end of the day, look, I'm 100% in favor of Facebook being broken up. This company is too big. It could be broken up into 15 companies, not just 2 companies, right? And the part of the problem here is that they service 2 billion users. So if you ask Facebook, they'll say, we slow roll these features because we don't want to roll out a buggy feature to 2 billion people. I get that. That makes sense. But if they were a smaller company, they could roll things out in a much more timely fashion.
That's true, too. Definitely different sections of the company could tackle these things. And really, they really need a privacy section of this company. We need Facebook privacy. That's what we need, a company called Facebook Privacy.
Facebook, you hear us. Change things. We don't like it.
Yeah, I'll be CEO. I got you.
All right, let's move on. Great story that I wanted to talk to you guys about. Tesla. We love the company, of course. Crazy cars, crazy innovations. Tesla just released a wild new patent for laser beams to scrape the gunk, or to burn the gunk, I should say, off of your windscreen. So the concept is pretty straightforward, right? You have an array of lasers and an array of cameras scattered on various places around the car to monitor and study your windscreen. As soon as a bird poops, the cameras detect it, and some algorithms say, we're going to zap this stuff right off.
Right. That's a little terrifying, when you put it that way. And it's not supposed to just be bird poop. It's supposed to be dust particles, too. So it's just a patent filing right now. And there's, we talked about this, there's a lot of those often. But I bet you there was more than a few patent filings that we've seen by Tesla, and we're like, what's that going to be? And then it turns out it happened. So
a lot of what they do seems like crazy pie in the sky stuff, and then some of it actually becomes reality.
then it works, So that's probably one of the more realistic ones, but maybe not for a while. I also wonder, is it supposed to? It's not supposed to replace the rain wiper, right? But just for gunk and things like that,
Yeah.
which is overkill.
No, I don't know. It kind of makes sense because I've been in the car many times, and the windshield wiper's doing this, but then it's stuck on a leaf or a smush bug, and that's the thing that you're focusing on when you're driving, right? You're looking at that one dot right there.
Right.
Get that thing off.
Did it say if this is going to happen while you're driving too?
It is, and the algorithm, of course, is going to. The key is to not beam a laser beam directly into your eyeballs and blind you while you're driving. That would be detrimental.
That'd be great.
So, in theory, they can triangulate effectively and hit just the gunk for just the right amount of time. Getting the dust off, though, that's crazy. Because that implies that they're using this laser beam on a very regular basis, not just once when there's a smudge or a smot. Mm-hmm. A spot.
Smooge or a smot. This
How
laser
often
will
is
get
the
them out.
laser beam going to come out and zap stuff on your windscreen?
Right. Yeah, it's going to be an interesting thing if it comes in, but you have to worry about what kind of glass is resistant to this. We've seen certain Tesla glasses not hold up to things that they were supposed to hold up to.
That's a great point. Yep.
So that's definitely something that it looks like they'll have to iron out as well.
And speaking of Tesla unveils, we have another little Tesla-related story we wanted to discuss here, which is the Model Y. So a report came out on CNBC. They talked to some of the suppliers that Tesla works with, and the story goes that the Model Y is being accelerated. So there was talk about it coming out in 2020, maybe 2021. Now they're saying the Model Y is going to be available much sooner. The Model Y, of course, is the crossover, a hatchback, larger car, but yet another model in the Tesla lineup, which strikes me as kind of crazy because this is a company that doesn't deliver cars very effectively. That's what they do is they make cars. They have a hard time actually producing them fast enough. Do you think this is going to actually happen?
I think they're definitely trying to accelerate it, as they have in the past. I feel like this is a story we hear every a year or two into an announcement of a car. It's that Tesla's accelerating the production of such XY car, and let's look at another example. Was 2 years ago, exactly 2 years ago, that the Semi and the Roadster were announced and unveiled, and
where are
haven't
those?
heard a thing about them. I'm personally waiting for that Roadster. That's the only Tesla I'll buy.
It feels like Tesla's made a million announcements and actually only delivered one or two cars.
Yeah.
The other thing is we got the Cybertruck, of course, and if you remember at the tail end of the announcement, they were like, by the way, we're also making an ATV.
Which looked pretty sweet. That's the other Tesla I'll buy. I will buy a Tesla ATV because that thing looked super cool. But they said, he later confirmed in a tweet that it would be an option first for the Cybertruck, and then perhaps down the line, something that you can buy. So I guess we'll see when Cybertruck sales go up. But are you buying a Cybertruck, by the way?
$100? Sure.
For $100.
Everyone's buying it.
What about the Model Y? I thought you liked that.
I like that. Look, I'm holding out for the Tesla boat, which I'm sure is coming, and the Tesla airplane and helicopter, which will follow right afterwards. They can make a million announcements. I'd love to see some actual products.
Fair enough.
That's all we got for the news. We've got lots more technology coming up just after this short break, so please do stick around. We'll be right back.
I'm Greg Nibbler here with Riley Wynn from Digital Trends here at the Qualcomm Snapdragon Summit in Maui. And we're talking about all the hottest developments in 5G. And we're rounding out our top 5, starting with number 1.
New Snapdragon products in 2020. That's right, we have the 765, 765G, and the 865 chips all coming out over the next year. The processing power on these chips is going to be phenomenal. They're going to be crazy quick. But what does that actually mean, right? Well, we're not just going to see 5G in our phones anymore. They're going to be going to new products. We're going to be having a lot more access to 5G. A lot more people are going to be able to use it. And it's really going to bring that interconnectivity that 5G has been promising to life.
Number 2, 5G access is going to happen a lot faster than we think. So there's a lot that was talked about here. Qualcomm, certainly with their chips, is speeding that along, but another big deal is their partnerships that they have formed. So a couple statistics to go along with this. Right now, they said they have 325 plus partners in 109 countries.
Wow.
That's a lot of people.
That is a lot of people.
5G. And also, a couple other things. They said by the end of 2020, 200 million 5G subscribers will be in the world, and that is huge in its own right, just right there.
You got 2 right here.
You got 2 right here. Yeah, well, soon.
Soon, hopefully.
Please. But also, just looking forward, even in the next 2 years, even going out to 5 years, they're saying by 2025, 2.8 billion 5G connections are forecast, and that's just going to open up access to so many different things and so many people.
Number 3, 5G will enable artificial intelligence. So speaking of that access, 5G is going to make AI explode. We've seen it in a few industries and a few different facets, but we're gonna see it in so much more. It's gonna be going into the medical industry a lot more. We're gonna see it in automotive. The reason we're gonna see that explosion of AI is because of 5G. It's just gonna make it work faster, make it quicker. It's gonna be great.
Number 4, we learned about how Qualcomm can enable better security. This is going to be huge. They gave an example, actually, of a new product called the 3D Sonic Max fingerprint scanning system. So it's complicated when you get down to it, but the name's really cool. So let's explain what exactly that is, though. This is why it's cool. So think about when you're scanning your fingerprint on your phone right now. It's really usually a tiny little area that you can use. Well, now with this new system, they're able to make that 17 times as big. That's huge. That means essentially using your thumbprint on any part of your screen would be possible. On top of that, the security side. So right now, what they said is that 1 in 50,000 scans has the possibility of maybe not working or even maybe being compromised. But with this, it's 1 in 1 million. That is huge. So that means better security for all of us, and it means a lot safer when it comes to our devices.
And number 5, 5G will be in our entertainment. So we had a special guest today, Steve Aoki, the famous DJ, came on stage and he told us how he plans on using 5G in his concerts and in his shows. So he's using 5G, or going to use 5G, to make AR better, VR better, because he wants to really make his shows immersive. He's playing music, but he also wants another experience on top of that for his fans, for his audience.
And that is just 5 things from today at the Qualcomm Snapdragon Summit. So if you want to find out more about all of those, of course you can go to all of our coverage at digitaltrends.com. We're going to continue to talk about 5G. It's exciting. We want you to know about it. So don't forget, go to digitaltrends.com.
Welcome back. Thanks again for joining us and sticking around. We've got lots of great tech to talk about. We have a really interesting story for you right now. We're joined by Matt Zaracina. He's the co-founder and CEO of a company called True Tickets, which has a solution to the larger problem of ticketing, which is just a whole mess, a whole fiasco. Here's the thing, can technology help solve it? Matt, thanks very much for joining us.
Jeremy, thanks for having me.
Maybe you can walk us through exactly what your platform does. Tell us a little bit about True Tickets.
So about True Tickets, we are a startup. We are a B2B service that helps our clients enable a better B2C experience. What I like to say we do at the highest level is we make a ticket what it was always meant to be, which is a license to an experience. And you alluded to some of the issues in ticketing when you kicked off here. And a lot of those issues have to do with the fact that a ticket has really been co-opted as a quasi-asset. And when you talk to at least our clients, who are essentially the rights holders or the creators of those tickets, they would say that it was always meant to be a license to an experience. And if you look at ticketing, the biggest thing that technology like ours enables is essentially the manifestation or the implementation of the business model as it was intended. So a contrast is when you think about things like Uber or Lime or mobility, you can see that technology has actually changed the business model there. You start to see physical equipment being licensed in the real world, versus what we're doing is we're actually providing a technology that makes the business model very, in effect, what it was always meant to be.
Well, so what exactly does that mean, that you've got a ticket to an experience?
I think one of the best examples is if you think through, maybe if you think back, if you watched Game 3 of the NBA Finals. And so when you think of a license to an experience, you had an unfortunate situation where Kyle Lowry of the Raptors leaped into the first row of the seats and he was shoved by a Warriors fan. And that Warriors fan also happened to be a minority owner in the Warriors. And that fan was rightfully ejected both from that game as well as banned from seeing any other games for a year. And if that ticket was actually an asset, that fan would have a legitimate claim to say, no, I own that seat. That is my seat. I can do whatever I'd like with that. When in fact, when it comes down to it, it's a revocable license. And that's how our clients would like these tickets to be treated in the broader ecosystem. Now, that doesn't mean that a venue or one of our clients doesn't want a ticket to be shared or doesn't necessarily want it to be resold. They want that license to be distributed, but they want it to be distributed in accordance with their rules, and they want those rules followed and enforced.
So are you targeting a certain market? You mentioned the sports market, for example. Are we going to be looking at sports tickets? Are we talking about theater? Are we talking about movies?
So it could be any of those, right? So it's really any of those where someone's creating essentially a manifest. When you look at a movie, a sporting event, a theatrical performance, really what someone is doing is they're having a party. And when they sell tickets, what they're doing is they're creating a guest list for that party. And they're okay with that list changing, again, as long as it changes in accordance with the rules that they'd like. We've actually had the most traction, I'd say, recently in 2019 with the arts community. I wouldn't say that that's because we're specifically targeting the arts community over sports or other types of verticals. It's just that the arts community has been the most engaged and enthusiastic to work with us to help develop a solution that we can scale across the industry. But we are also talking with sports clients and other types of venues as well.
So this is all powered. This sounds like something that is 100% powered by blockchain, right? You guys are deep into technology here.
So blockchain is a dirty word. Our solution is really a business.
It just confuses people. That's all.
It does just confuse people. Look, blockchain is a unique type of database. And what I like to say is that we actually provide a business solution. Our business solution is actually 15 different microservices that work together to create the capability to essentially license an experience like this. Now, the ledger service, which is, you could call it blockchain, the ledger service is one of those 9 microservices, but it's a piece of the puzzle. And we think we've found a way to use this unique type of database the right way to create a product market fit for an overall solution that can service an industry.
Gotcha. Makes sense. So what does this experience feel like for an actual consumer? You purchase a ticket, I assume you're not getting a piece of paper these days, right?
So that is the best part about this, right? And in fact, this is a movie you've seen before, you just don't know it yet. So when you think back to maybe the 90s, when you got your Windows 95 software update, you got something, a CD-ROM that looked like an asset, but it was really a license. And when you think back to media in the 2000s, maybe you still got your CDs or your DVDs, you were getting something that was essentially, again, a license, but looked like an asset. And tickets, when you got that cardstock ticket or that PDF print at home, while it looked and felt like a physical asset, again, it was a license. And so from a user experience, one of the things that our clients were very adamant about was, please don't interrupt the user journey. So can you change outcomes without having to change behaviors? And I think that's what we've done very well. So from a user experience standpoint, you're going to go to your venue, your site, you're going to buy your ticket just like you always did. When you get to checkout, you're going to pay for it just like you always did. When you select the delivery method, that's where there will be a little bit of a change. And you might see PDF print at home, you might see pick up at will call, or you might see digital. If you select digital and it's one of our clients, it will flow through our white label service. That's the only change. You'll get a confirmation email. Within that confirmation email, instead of maybe getting the PDF printed home ticket, you'll get a link to access your digital ticket through a wallet. Now that wallet again is white label, so it's going to look and feel just like the venue that we're working with. You'll log into that wallet using that exact same venue credential. So there's no true ticket credential. You don't have to manage two different IDs to receive it. And then once you're into your wallet, you can access the QR code. The QR code is dynamic. It can be geofenced. It can be time fenced. And the best part is from our client side is it works with their current scanning hardware. So that was another stipulation that, look, if we have to buy one more cable for our scanning systems to make this work, that's a non-starter. And so I think we've made a really effective business solution where we're changing outcomes without changing behaviors, and it works in a way with our clients to where it truly is a digital solution that doesn't really manifest itself from a change standpoint in any aspect of the customer journey.
Yeah, that strikes me as what's really interesting here, because there's a lot of technology going on here, right? You've got a whole new wallet on your cell phone to control some of these, to contain some of these tickets. There's a whole bunch of technology behind how tickets are sold and exchanged and whatnot, the money transferring. But then in terms of the venue itself, or in terms of even the user experience, you're still just showing up, scanning something, and walking into the venue and taking your seat.
And that was one of the biggest learnings. Our solution is a web app, so you don't have to download another app. One of the things we learned early on was that nobody wants to download another app, whether it's a consumer or whether it's one of our clients. In fact, some of our clients, they have mobile apps today, and they would actually like to leave those because they find them as more of a hindrance. Because most people are going to these venues maybe a handful of times a year, most of them once. And so when you think about having to download an app to then receive your ticket, that just adds friction to the customer journey, customer experience, and creates issues. And so we were able to design this and do this via a web app, which is another way we've been able to reduce some of that friction. And so that's kind of one of the keys to what we're building is using the best of technology to architect it in a way where the complexity is abstracted out of the user experience. When you think of your iPhone, the iPhone or whether you're an Android user, all those phones are built in such a way to make them very easy to use. And they do that because they've abstracted all that complexity underneath the hood of the device. And those are very complex instruments, but they've done it and architected it really well to improve the customer experience. And I'd like to think that's how we built our solution as well.
Matt, I got one last question for you. We're running out of time here, but I just have to ask. So is this available today? And if so, what does that look like for consumers? Do you just you go to a standard ticket buying portal or to the venue itself, and you have an option to select True Tickets?
It will be available very soon. We're in the final stages of some pre-production testing and launching. From the user experience, it will be right now, it will start with our venue clients. So we have several commercial clients signed up. And when you go to purchase the ticket, you'll check out. And if you see digital M-True Ticket, you'll know that ticket is supported by our service. But the same flow that I talked about just recently will be exactly what you experience. We hope to, in early to middle of next year, work with Schubert to make this available and integrate it with distribution platforms. I think that's where you'll really get the power of this technology and where you'll really start to solve some of the bigger issues in ticketing with that is creating kind of that data standardization and the consistency and the consumer journey across distribution platforms. I think with the Schubert organization, they have hundreds of distribution partners. And so when you think about distributing digital tickets across those 100, if they can, one, create a standardized data construct as well as a consistent consumer experience, so they can get good, valid data that they can use for marketing purposes, and they can create a much more consistent and pleasant customer journey where the customer knows they're getting a valid ticket. That's of the utmost importance to them, and that's what we're looking to tackle in 2020. So we hope to have some really good news here soon about launching our production solution. But if it's not available this month, it should be available Q1 with our current pilot clients and some of our early commercial adopters.
Well, best wishes. It sounds like a great platform. Congratulations. Matt Zaracina, the co-founder and CEO of True Tickets. Thank you very much again for joining us. We've got lots more technology just around the bend, but first, a quick break. We'll be right back. Hey, welcome back to the show. Thanks again for joining us. Digital Trends Live, streaming to you live every day, right around this time. Give or take a few minutes, whatever we're up to. You know how it is. We're joined by Drew Prindle, who's going to tell us a little bit about a drone that he tried really hard to crash and somehow couldn't. It's called the Skydio 2. Drew, thanks for joining us on the show.
Thanks for having me, Jeremy. So yeah, Skydio 2. This is the second generation of a drone that came out last year, I think, and it was, the company was founded by these 3 MIT grads who were super crazy smart, and they were trying to take the industry by storm. And they have kind of done just that. This drone is crazy. This is one of the only drones that is not DJI that I think I would actually purchase. And the thing that sets it apart is the fact that it has one of the most robust obstacle avoidance systems I've ever seen on a drone. Like, this thing is fully designed to fly itself.
So I'm not looking directly at you, so describe it for me if you would. This is a big drone, this is a small drone, what are we talking?
So it's a drone-sized drone. It's I'd say it's pretty standard sized. It's not like DJI's folding drones that you see that can compact down. And the reason it doesn't have folding arms is because it needs to have the cameras. It has 6 4K cameras that it uses for environmental sensing, and those need to stay in the exact same position all the time. So you can't have kind of a loose folding arm that might be like a couple millimeters to one side or the other. So it has fixed wings or fixed arms, and it doesn't fold down, but it's fairly compact. Even when you have it in its little case and everything, that case fits pretty neatly into a backpack. So it's still really easy to take along on adventures if you're going like mountain biking or snowboarding or whatever. You could definitely take this along with no issues.
And so you've taken it out, you've tested this bad boy. Tell us about your experiences. Was it easy to fly? Was it hard to crash?
Yeah, so it was pretty strange, to be quite honest. Because the thing about it is you don't really fly it. Like, if you're using the flagship feature of this thing, which is its auto follow functionality, you are going almost completely hands off. When I went out to test
sounds
this
ideal,
thing,
frankly.
Yeah, I mean, it's pretty nice because you can focus less on controlling the drone and more on just doing what you're doing, and then the camera and the AI take care of all of the filming and making good-looking video for you. But because this is a second generation of a drone that they've been working on for quite some time, and they're kind of billing it as the most advanced auto-follow drone in the world, I was like, okay, let's take this out and throw it off the deep end. So I went out with a couple friends. We went mountain biking and specifically took it to the most densely forested area that we could think of. We went to this place called Sandy Ridge, just outside of Portland, and this place, there was a thicket. I mean, very, very tight trees for this thing to navigate through, and it did all right. It wasn't quite as good as I expected it to be, but I think that was more because we took it to the sketchiest place possible. So it tends to lag behind a little bit in very, very dense trees. But in trees that aren't quite as dense, that are just a little bit sparse, it sticks right on you. It's extremely impressive with how well it can stay on you and dodge obstacles and kind of keep up. And then when you're out in the open, don't
What amazes me about drones.
Oh, go ahead.
There's a robust class of different drones that exist, right? There are drones that are special purpose ones that'll clean the mold off your house. There are drones that will, water the harvests and whatnot. But what strikes me as crazy about drones, the way that pretty immediately we struck upon this follow me mode functionality.
Yeah.
And it really seems like just a transformative use case for these things.
Yeah, and yeah, like I mentioned before, like DJI has been doing this. I've flown a couple of these previous versions of auto follow drones, like like 5 years ago is when they kind of started coming out. But this is really like taking that idea and getting it to a point where it's actually useful. Like before, they would use like Bluetooth to track you, or really not so great GPS beacons that would follow you and stuff. So they could fly themselves, but you could really only fly them in open areas if you had a really strong connection. But this thing is completely different. Like even if it loses sight of you, there's a little beacon that comes with it. You can press a button and it will autonomously navigate back to you, regardless of what the environment is like.
Whoa, that's amazing.
So yeah, I think this is the first incarnation of an autofollow drone that's actually worth buying. The other ones were just a little bit too fickle and not quite advanced enough to truly be useful.
So it's got to be using some sort of an AI. There's got to be actual brains and intelligence built directly into the drone in order to follow you and detect where the trees are, detect where you are, as a moving object also detect your path and figure out where you're going.
Yeah, so the software behind this thing has been quite a few years in the making. Like I said earlier, it's like a team of 3 MIT grads that have been working on this. It was like their senior doctorate project or whatever. And the software initially, they put it on a winged drone. And what they had it do was fly through an empty parking structure without hitting any of the pillars or whatever. It could just fly around full speed, a wing drone, not like a hover drone. This thing had to keep a constant speed in order to create lift. And you got to see the video. It's just this thing doing crazy figure eights through this parking structure and not crashing. And they basically took that and then baked it into a hover drone and have kind of been iterating on it ever since and making it better and better and better. So now what we have is a quadcopter drone with 6 4K cameras, and they're kind of like little fisheye lenses. There's 3 on the top, 3 on the bottom, and that gives it full environmental awareness of its surroundings. 360 degrees, up, down, left, right, forward, back. It can see absolutely everything and plan its path intelligently.
So MIT engineers clearly know how to design a better drone. The thing about all that smarts, all that technology, this thing has got to be expensive, right?
It's fairly expensive, although it's not the most expensive drone on the market right now. It's $999, which I'd say is squarely middle of the line. Like DJI's cheapest drone, which they just came out with, the Mavic Mini, is still, $400? And so this is just a bit of a step up from there, but it's not nearly as high as DJI's high-end drones, which are as much as like $1,700. So yeah, fairly middle of the line, and I'd honestly say this gets you a lot of bang for your buck.
You'd say middle of the line. I would say that's expensive. That feels like a lot of money to spend on a drone.
Yes, but in the context of drones and like nice drones that are actually worth buying if you're trying to like film yourself, I'd say this is not the most expensive one that you can get, and falls somewhere in the middle.
Fair enough. No, I get that. I raised the point of cost because I wanted to ask you, do you have a sense of how well drones are actually selling? And the fact that we have new companies like this, or new people coming in with new ideas, means that people certainly feel there's a market. But
Yeah.
I'm wondering, especially when you're talking about drones that cost $1,000 versus $500, to what extent are they actually being purchased and picked up by the market?
Yeah, that's a good question. Honestly, I think time will tell if people are actually like interested in something like this, because there have been a ton of auto-follow drones in the past that have come out, and those companies have not fared well. They've kind of just been swallowed up and overshadowed by DJI. Right now, DJI is really the only company that is selling a considerable amount of drones. Every other competitor, it seems like, has just kind of languished and is not doing so hot. You've seen Unique come into the space. They had some good drones. They're really not doing that great. They're not pumping out a lot more drones. They're not innovating anymore. People aren't really buying them like they used to be. And that same goes for damn near every other drone manufacturer in the game. So yeah, like I said, time will tell if Skydio can break out. I think they've got something special. I think of all of the companies that have popped up in the last few years that have kind of said, hey, we have a cool new drone you should buy, this is probably the best contender to DJI that I've seen yet.
Well, that's the question, and time will tell. Can
Yeah.
somebody build a better drone and create a whole new market to really incite and inspire this market, which, by the way, does have some really cool products, and I think that the follow me functionality is really fascinating. Drew, thanks very much for coming on the show. Appreciate talking to you.
Yeah.
We'll be right back with from a little show called The Man in the High Castle, which just started its 4th and final season. We'll talk to Rich all about what that's up, and hopefully we'll get a couple spoilers about what you can expect from the new season. So stick around. We'll be right back after this message. Thanks again for joining us here at Digital Trends Live, coming to you live every single day. And we're joined by a fantastic guest today, Rich Ting, martial arts expert, actor. You might know him from The Man in the High Castle. You might know him from Cinemax's hit show Warrior. Rich, thanks very much for joining us.
Thank you guys for having me.
So, martial arts expert leads its way into acting. That's not the most common of pathways. I'm wondering how you got your start, both in martial arts and in acting.
Well, yeah, it's been a crazy journey to say the least, you know, and I'm just blessed and fortunate to be waking up every day and doing what I love to do. This was honestly never the plan. I went to college, I went to grad school, I was working in the legal corporate sector of downtown Los Angeles, and I got an opportunity to audition for Warner Brothers feature film a long time ago. And I kind of used that as my breakthrough, and I've never looked back. So it's just been, it's been a very humbling, at the same time, very flattering experience for me, you know, so far in my career.
I think many of us would take that jump if we could, going from being a lawyer to being an actor, doing something you're a little bit more passionate about.
Definitely. I've always wanted to find that one thing that would wake me up in the morning, and I guess I just, the universe has a weird way of kind of working its way out. And I don't know if I was in denial for a long time, but I just kept doing things like graduate school and then working, in these other professions to kind of just to try to discover what I wanted to do in life. And I couldn't avoid it. It finally just, everything kind of came to an intersection, and I was able to jump on a film. And like I said, the rest is history.
I love that attitude. That's fantastic. Tell us about your role in Bruce Lee's Warrior.
Yeah, well, in season 1 of Cinemax's Warrior, I play the character of Bolo, which is truly based on the original character of Bolo Young, who a lot of people know about him through his work in Enter the Dragon as Bolo, and as well as other films like Bloodsport, where he played Chung Li. Bolo is the chief lieutenant of the Hopway Tong, or gang, in Chinatown. Our show takes place in the late 1800s, and it really just gives a good vibe and feel about, all the different layers of San Francisco at the time, politically, government-wise, socially, and, and it brings in this cool element, about immigration. You have the Irish coming in, you have the Chinese obviously there working on the railroads, and it's just kind of like this perfect storm
fascinating
of all
time.
cultures. So
What are the sets like? It must be. How do you take ordinary San Francisco and bring it back in time by 100 years?
Well, yeah, that obviously is the major task at hand. At the same time, we shot it in Cape Town, South Africa. So, when people watch it, they have no idea that we actually shot it overseas in a foreign country. We shot at Cape Town Studios. They completely rebuilt downtown San Francisco. It's one of the largest sets I've ever been on. The joke I always tell is my first day, in my transportation going to set, the driver actually got lost once we entered San Francisco on the lot. They have a Chinatown. They have a regular common area. It's a full city that you just look at one corner. I just remember being on set and looking at different corners of buildings and just, the way literally a fake brick wall would intersect the cobblestone. And I'm like, it's so real, yet it's not. And it was really crazy just to be there. And, what a gift for us actors to be on a set with so much life and detail where, you put a bunch of extras in there, you put a bunch of horses in there, and all of a sudden you're back in 1800 San Francisco. So it was really cool to say that.
That sounds astounding. And it's great for, as a viewer, you watch something like that and you're thinking, well, some of it's movie magic, some of it's special effects, but then the reality is some of it is just things that people have actually created in some location. It must be a blast to be there.
Oh no, totally. Again, with the improvements and all the crazy technology we have with, movie magic, as we call it, 90% of it is real in the sense that you are in a real city. It feels like a real city. It does not feel like a fake set whatsoever. They made blue screen, green screen, kind of the backdrop here and there. But like I said, the best gift that, you can give an actor is to provide him with that vivid environment with so much, so a place where I can just get impulses. There's a shot, I think in episode 1, where we're just walking down the street and there's extras and all these people intersecting us and just engaging in us. And it really allows me to live in the moment, as well as other actors to, just really feel that as if you're there walking on cobblestone, 1800s San Francisco. And it just comes alive. It's great.
Mind-blowing experience. Well, let's talk a little bit about The Man in the High Castle. So, of course, a story based on a Philip K. Dick short story, telling the story of what happens if the Nazis had actually won World War II. What's your take on the story? Do you feel like this is something that's really relevant to society today?
Well, first of all, to join this family, this Emmy award-winning series in the 4th and final season was an absolute blessing for me, especially coming off season 1 of Warrior. To kind of tangent real quick, you talk about set development and set production. I came from the Warrior set onto an Emmy award-winning production that's known for their detail in set production, in visual effects. I remember one story where Joe De La Fuente literally told me, he's like, hey, when you get a chance, just open any cabinet in this set right now and just see what's in there, because it's amazing the amount of detail that literally I opened up a cabinet. There was
Oh,
a bunch
wow.
of folders. I pulled out a document. It was a Japanese document from literally the 1950s. Everything was there. And again, these are the little gifts that, we may not rehearse this, like before the shot, but if there's an impulse while the camera is rolling and we happen to pick up something, a newspaper, an article, a folder, and open it, there's something really going on in there that allows us to really feed off that. So, not to get away from your question, but just again, so much respect, so much props, so much gratitude towards the set production on the Men in the High Castle. And sadly enough, through other discussions on set, I think it was common for the cast to kind of bring up, sadly enough, what if Nazi Germany and Imperial Japan really, won World War II and kind of formulated this alternative universe, and maybe that would have been reality, and again, unfortunately, we do find a lot of similarities with kind of what's going on in 2019 as we enter 2020, just with world politics, governing bodies, culture. You have these dominating nations, and you have these other nations that aren't as strong, and it's very, it's cliche, but history repeats itself. And that's probably one of the downsides of this whole experience, was that in reality, I think we haven't strayed too far from this extreme alternate universe.
Well, I think it's very relevant, though, and if you think about the world that we live in today, it just feels like a really interesting window. Just asking some simple what if questions. What if this had happened, and then how far off are we from where we are today? I think it's very relevant, very timely. So, Rich, can you tell us? I know you're probably not supposed to give any teasers away, but can you give us any hints about where we're going with this last season?
Yeah, like it just premiered on Amazon Prime earlier this month. So again, giving everyone and the viewers a chance to actually see it and enjoy it. It's hard to not talk about.
Don't give it away. Let them watch some of it.
I can say this: you get to meet Captain Ijima, who I play. He is a military captain sent over from Japan to assist and aid the investigation of a high-profile Japanese official who is murdered between season 3 and season 4. Traditionally, Chief Inspector Kido, played by Joe De La Fuente, usually has an assistant or a right-hand man. Captain Ijima is not necessarily his right-hand man, and the viewers will come to see why. And Captain Ijima's motives and kind of his objectives get questioned as you get further into the season. But I will say this. I think the writers and the producers did an excellent job in bringing closure to this entire show, in the 4th season. I think obviously that's always the most difficult task when you're ending a series. But at the same time, you leave enough out there for the viewers to believe it. At the same time, you close up enough, you close enough doors so that the viewers are also happy and satisfied with the way certain characters end, or where the certain characters are left going as we end season 4. So overall, I think, I don't think we knew initially that this was going to be the final season, but I think the writers did an excellent job in quote unquote wrapping it all up and really providing a closure, which I believe the audience will really enjoy.
Yeah, absolutely, and that's the hard part, making sure all the storylines and plots tie together neatly at the end, or leave them open-ended, however they choose to do that. But finding some sort of a conclusion is definitely the challenger. Rich, any other projects you're excited about at the moment?
Oh, definitely. Like anything else, this business is so crazy that literally when it rains, it pours, and when it doesn't, it's dry. So fortunately for me right now, my team and I are very busy. We just finished a feature film called Roma 96, will be coming out next year. I play the lead of that. Starting to film a Western cowboy film this weekend, actually in LA, where
Oh, cool! Wow.
I play the lead cowboy, which is another kind of twist, but another kind of cool thing, since it kind of piggybacks on Warrior in the sense, we're in the Wild West and 1800s, and then we have, finally this, the portrayal of Asian Americans, Chinese immigrants, in the Wild West. And I will say this: 2 other projects that are coming up.
That sounds great.
I will be on CBS's new drama called Tommy, playing opposite Edie Falco. So that premieres in February. So definitely, please, everyone, check that out. And last but not least, I've been rehearsing with the dude himself, Mr. Jeff Bridges, for his new FX show coming out next year. we start principal photography in January. What a blessing it's been to work with such a legend like Jeff Bridges. Great dude, awesome dude, literally the dude, and just couldn't be more happy with the momentum we have going into 2020.
Well, that's great. Best wishes, Rich.
Thank you. I
Excuse me.
appreciate
It's been a
it.
real delight talking to you. Thank you very much. Rich Ting, martial artist, actor, Wild West hero apparently as well. And that's all we've got for you today from Digital Trends. But do stick around tomorrow. We got lots more technology coming up from Digital Trends Live. We're live every morning at 9 a.m. Pacific, 12 p.m. Eastern Time. For Digital Trends, I'm Jeremy Kaplan.